Now we look at what are the conditions in issuing a back-to-back LC. Earlier in this tutorial, we already know that a back-to-back LC comes into picture when there are more than two trading parties. And secondly, we also know that the master LC and the back-to-back LC are two separate payment contracts. That means the master LC issuing bank only undertakes to pay complying documents drawn under the master LC. And the back-to-back LC issuing bank only undertakes to pay complying documents drawn under the back-to-back LC. So there are not only two separate contracts, but there are also two separate payment undertakings by two different banks. Based on these justifications, a back-to-back LC can be issued to more than one beneficiary. Each beneficiary can be assigned with partial amount. For example, US 20,000 to Barry, US 10,000 to Frank, US 20,000 to Joe, and US 20,000 to Bob, but with two conditions. Condition number one, the total aggregate amount should not exceed the amount of the master LC. And condition number two, the master LC must allow partial shipments or partial drawings. On the other hand, if the master LC does not allow partial shipments or partial drawings, the back-to-back LC is restricted to only one beneficiary with one shipment. Now, can a back-to-back LC be issued against another back-to-back LC? Before we can answer this question, we must go back to the very basic back-to-back rules. Number one, two separate payment contracts and two separate payment undertakings. Number two, the first LC and the second LC are totally two separate contracts. Number three, the undertaking to pay of the first LC issuing bank is totally independent from the undertaking to pay of the second LC issuing bank. And number four, there are no direct relationships between both of the LCs and both of the issuing banks. These rules confer that the second LC or the next LC issued against the first one is in actual fact the new and separate LC altogether. The first LC is only serves as a collateral to the issuance of the second LC. So by having the first LC as a collateral, the second LC issuing bank can make use of the first LC to recover funds paid out under the second LC. Assuming Bob is buying palm oil from Joe and he issues an LC to Joe, Joe has to buy from Frank before he can supply to Bob. So Joe issues a back-to-back LC to Frank. Now Frank has to buy from another seller, Barry, before he can sell to Joe. So Frank requests his bank to issue an LC to Barry based on the LC he received from Joe as a collateral. When Frank issued an LC to Barry, this LC is now a master LC to this bank. If Barry is buying from another seller and issues a second LC, the first LC that he received from Frank is now a master LC as well as a collateral to this issuing bank. And it goes on and on. But of course, in reality, the issuance of LC stops when there's no more room to make profit. But that is not my point here. The point is a back-to-back LC can be issued against another back-to-back LC. And in fact, back-to-back LC can be issued in series. There is one back-to-back LC against another back-to-back, which answer this question. Can a back-to-back LC be issued against another back-to-back LC? And the answer is yes. So now we know that the back-to-back LC can be issued either in series, there is one back-to-back against another back-to-back, or it can also be issued in multiple back-to-back against one master LC. The other question is, can a back-to-back LC be issued against a transferable LC? The problem with the transferable LC is that it can only be transferred once. For example, John issues a transferable LC to Tony, and Tony is the first seller or the first beneficiary of the LC. Tony can transfer the LC to one or more second sellers or second beneficiaries. Now, the second sellers cannot transfer the LC to another seller or the third sellers. If the second sellers need to buy from another seller, this is where a back-to-back LC comes into the picture. As I mentioned earlier, the first LC received from a buyer can be used as a collateral for the issuance of the second LC, that is a back-to-back LC. Assuming Bob is buying palm oil from Joe, Bob issues a transferable LC to Joe. Joe then transfers 50% of the amount to Barry in Malaysia and another 50% of the amount to Frank. Barry and Frank cannot transfer the LC to another seller because both of them are the second sellers. If Frank somehow have to buy from another seller, Robert for example, he can charge the transferable LC as a collateral to his bank and request his bank to issue a back-to-back LC to Robert. So to answer this question, can a back-to-back LC be issued against a transferable LC? The answer is yes. The back-to-back LC transaction can be simply understood like a box in a box. The back-to-back LC is a small box, and the master LC you can consider it as a big box. The master LC is the accommodating box where a back-to-back LC can sit in comfortably, that is not too loose and not too tight. The terms and conditions of the master LC provides the main framework for back-to-back LC to operate with a breathing space alongside every angle. This space gives room for back-to-back LC to have a reduced amount so that a seller can collect his profit. And secondly, the expiry date of the back-to-back LC can be shortened to give room for earlier presentation and earlier shipment of goods, so that the middleman will be able to comply with the terms and conditions set in the master LC.